Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too. Together, redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
Hello and welcome to the Skift India Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Peden Doma Bhutia, and in today's episode, I have with me Vishal Suri, the Managing Director of SOTC Travel. Welcome, Vishal. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Peden. Thanks for having me in your show, and I'm really looking forward to this interaction.
So are we, Vishal. Today, Vishal and I will be discussing about everything from the evolving visa regulations for Indian travelers to the travel trends in India and beyond. We'll just get started. First up, Vishal, let's talk about the recent changes in visa regulations that are going to make it easier for Indian travelers to explore Europe. Of course, the new Schengen visa cascade regime looks to offer longer-term multi-entry Schengen visas based on an applicant's travel history. Now someone who wants to know how long is the longer duration, well, according to the European Commission, they've said that Schengen countries can issue about a 2-year multiple entry visa after a traveler has used 2 visas in the previous 3 years, which also means that they want travelers who have a positive travel history. Vishal, how do you look at this change?
So, like you very rightly put across, Peden, European Union is obviously looking at the attractiveness of the India as a source market, and obviously Indians are traveling quite a bit. So, what they want to do is essentially do 3 things in my mind. One is they want to target the frequent Indian traveler who has the propensity and the uh, appetite to actually travel multiple number of times to the European Union, which is obviously the Schengen countries. They also want to encourage the spontaneous and the frequent travel to Schengen. And obviously, their other benefit to them is it'll reduce over a period of time the workload on the Schengen consular teams in India, because at this point in time, obviously there are delays in appointments and stuff like that.
Yeah, because they are already overburdened, right?
Yeah, they're already overburdened, and there is a delay in appointments in some of the Schengen countries because post COVID, a lot of them have reduced their consular staff in India. So what really happens under the cascade scheme is that if you've, like you said, if you've traveled to Schengen twice over the last 3 years, they will give you the next time that you apply a longer term, a 2-year visa to start with. And if you use that 2-year visa, then you will become eligible for another 5-year visa, provided your passport is valid at that point in time. Now you must.
Yes, because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to discuss something. It's quite funny because I am traveling to Europe next month, and I applied for, and I had before this I've had like the 2-year Schengen visa as well as the 5-year Schengen visa. So the last one that expired was the 5-year Schengen visa that expired in September 2023. Now, before that, I had done in May 2023 an Iceland and a Finland tour. So when I applied this time from the Norway embassy, I applied for my Schengen visa. So yeah, I was asking the VFS person who was there. I was asking her, and she said that yeah, you may be granted, maybe at least a 1-year visa you would be granted. And when the visa came back from the Norway embassy, I got a visa for the specific number of days that I am in Scandinavia. And it was a single entry visa. I don't think ever since I've been traveling, I mean, like in the past, 10, 15 years, I've ever got a single entry visa. So I was a little taken aback by, I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah. So by default today, I'm not very surprised with whatever you just mentioned, because by
Uh-huh.
default today, what really happens is, and obviously Schengen, the rule says that you need to apply at the port of entry, so the country which is the port of entry, or where you
Uh-huh.
plan to spend the maximum number of days.
Maximum number of days.
Number of
Correct.
days. So you have to apply in that particular Schengen. So by default today, if there is no specific request, by default, they will look at your itinerary, they'll look at your insurance, and they'll look at your return tickets. And base that by default, and I'm using the word by default, they typically are
Oh,
will grant
okay.
you a visa based on the days that you will travel, unless you very specifically mention in your application that there is a long term visa. Under the cascade scheme, what really happens is they are changing this default to say that you will be able to apply for a longer term multiple entry visa provided you've traveled to the Schengen twice over the last 3 years. And if you do that, the default can be then you automatically qualify as a frequent traveler, and then you can apply for a longer term visa. The first
Uh,
longer term visa by default would be a 2 year visa, and the subsequent one would be a 5 year visa. So that's essentially what it is. And like I said earlier, when I was trying to basically address your point, I personally view this as a very welcome change. It's going to ease up a lot of backlog because frequent travelers will continue to keep applying if because they travel frequently. Now, with this, if they have a longer term visa, it will encourage them to travel more frequently and more spontaneously.
mhm.
Good for the our industry.
Correct. Absolutely.
And visa, obviously, you will appreciate is a barrier to travel to that extent. And once that barrier is to that extent eased, and we've noticed there are destinations, there are countries like United States of America. By default, if you're granted an H1 or an B1 or a B2, sorry, you will get a 10-year multiple entry visa. Canada would
Correct.
obviously give a long term multiple entry visa. See, both these destinations should have a different kind of a problem because appointments are late. But what happens is, on an average, if you give about a million plus multiple entry visa, you have those many people who have an opportunity to travel over the next 10 years, and they don't have to keep coming for the next 10 years back to your consulate to apply for another visa. So there are
Uh-huh.
countries which are already applying that rule, which is US, Canada, UK, and they are granting long-term visa. And now even there are countries like Australia also which have started doing it. Schengen is another welcome one because Europe, which is the continental Europe or the Western Europe, is extremely popular as a travel destination for Indians, and there are a lot of people who also do businesses with those countries. So we view this as a very, very positive development for our industry, and we're looking forward to the fallout out of this in terms of the bookings and frequent travel, which will happen.
Vishal, has it been already been implemented, or is there a date that they're going to implement this?
I think they've already announced it, and
Mhm.
the date's a specific date because all the Schengen countries or the Union has to come together and start processing it. My sense is it'll happen
Mhm.
very, very quickly. In another week or 10 days' time, it should be ready to be implemented because it's already been announced.
Correct. And it is also peak summer travel season for India as well, right? And, now shifting our focus to summer travel trends in India, I wanted to ask you about, what are Indians up to this season? Of course, we've been reading a lot about the mix of domestic and international preferences. And I also wanted to ask you, what are some of the popular domestic destinations? Is it still the usual hill stations, Goa, that continue to attract travelers within India? And also internationally, what are the hotspots for Indian tourists? Are Indians still traveling to popular destinations both within and outside the country, or are they looking to explore, what are often now called hidden gems?
See, I think my answer would essentially, and it's a simple answer, is all the above because over the last couple of years, and especially post pandemic, there is a very clear behavioral change, and in the way the Indians look at travel. And there was a time, maybe about 10 years back, a travel or a leisure travel used to be considered as, let's say, people used to feel guilty about taking a trip like that, or taking long term holidays and traveling and spending so much of their savings into that kind of travel. But today, the behavior has changed, and obviously there are changes in the patterns in which people look at. So it's becoming, India is becoming more a spending economy versus a saving economy,
Saving.
and people are investing, and they realize that they must invest in travel and experiences rather than accumulating material goods and stuff like that. So people are traveling over the last 2 years, and in any case, we've maintained that we've seen a strong surge and of demand. The desire to travel is extremely strong out of India. So be it domestic travel or the short haul travel, or for that matter a long haul travel, everything is in demand at this point in time. And obviously it's reflected in terms of the higher airfares. The flights are all full in terms of the higher
Mhm.
hotel accommodation, but that doesn't stop. Coming to your specific questions on the domestic, so let me first address domestic and then I'll come to the international. And international is being driven by completely different set of levers, while domestic is a different kind of the levers that see. I've always said in the past also, and I'm maybe at the cost of repetition, proximity and connectivity essentially drive tourism. India, in any case, was a is a large country. It's almost like a continent with 30 plus states, different regions, different languages, different cultures, different colors and smells of the country. So there's a lot to explore within India. But what has happened is over
Mhm.
the last 1 decade, under this whole Udan scheme, we've kind of doubled the number of airports in the country. I think the number at this point in time is close to about 150. I think for 148 or 149 airports is what we have in the country. And over the next 5 years, I think this number will go to about 200, which means the country is getting far better connected. And when it is better connected, and there is a huge thrust right from the Prime Minister's office on discover your own country, dekho apna desh, and these
Mhm.
are big
Mhm.
levers. And with what happened last year in terms of G20, where we showcased 60 uh, tourism or the centers in India. So there is a overall travel. And what is also happening, people, the Indian consumer or the Indian traveler who was taking about 2 or 3 trips in a year is now taking, and I'm maybe risking it because I'm not backing it with a lot of research, but whatever I'm seeing around
Mhm.
myself and I'm calling it out in that manner, they're taking up to about 5 to 6 trips in a year. And a lot of those, almost about 4 or 5 of those trips, and there could be multiple reasons. It could be family reunions, it could be friends going out together, it could be school reunions or college reunions, but people are traveling for leisure. About 5 to 6 times a year, and which is why domestic is surging. Now, summer travel predominantly is the holiday period in schools and colleges, so it is more associated with the family travels, the family with children and the grandparents. Everybody travels together. And summer, because it's summer, what are the most popular destinations in India is essentially the hills of north, the hills of
Mhm.
northeast, and obviously the Nilgiris, the hills of south. So obviously hill
Mhm.
destinations are obviously extremely popular in the summer. So Kashmir, Leh Ladakh, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Northeast, whole of Northeast is now open for Indians to travel, are extremely popular at this time. While Goa is an all-year favorite, so people travel to Goa for 12 months in the year. So we are still seeing a lot of this thing. Another reason which is also driving domestic travel in India is the resurgence of the spiritual travel. And I'm saying this: these Vaishno Devi or the Shirdi trips, or for that matter, were always very popular in India, but they were not being offered like organized programs by organized players such as ours. But now what is happening is suddenly there is a very strong surge with the Ram Mandir, the Prime Minister visiting Dwarka. So we've kind of expanded. Players like us have expanded our portfolio, and we call it, the whole portfolio is called Darshans, which is essentially spiritual tourism, which is where we give aerial darshan by helicopter.
Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too, together redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
To Adi Kailash, Dev Bhumi, Char Dham, Do Dham.
Darshans means more of a glimpse, right? It means a glimpse of something. So it's when
It's
you, yeah.
it's a very popular way of saying it, that if I go to a temple, mere darshan hue ki nahi. I'm
Yeah, it's like pilgrimage.
did I,
It's
did
more
I,
like a
did I
pilgrimage.
do the darshan of the deity? So darshans is essentially the portfolio that we have curated, which is essentially about spiritual tourism, and I was talking about Kashi Vishwanath corridor, the Vaishno Devi, the Ram temple in Ayodhya. And obviously, what happens is demand is already there. The infrastructure, in terms of the hotels, in terms of the tourism infrastructure, is getting built very, very quickly, because there are private players who are willing to invest around this big opportunity. So that's the other reason. So at this point in time, in domestic, obviously, like I said, the hills of north, the hills of south, and the northeast are extremely popular. We're also seeing demand around, because it's a holiday period. All the pilgrimage or the spiritual destinations are overflowing with tourists, and they are
Mhm.
going for this, and they're also bundling their leisure trips around that. So, like if somebody's traveling to north, they will do Rishikesh, river rafting and stuff like that. All of those things they are doing. Coming to short haul destination in summer, I think there is a race amongst countries to actually make travel for Indians far more simpler. So there are countries like
Absolutely.
Thailand, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka to that extent, and who made it visa free. And obviously, it's reduction in cost,
Mhm.
but visa is obviously a barrier, like I mentioned earlier. And suddenly,
Mhm.
it attracts a lot of people. And I just want to mention this to you. As far as India is concerned, Indians can now travel to about, and nobody knows, nobody talks about it. We talk about only the popular destination. There are about 33 countries which are visa free for Indians. There are 29 countries which actually give visa on arrival to Indians. Yeah. And there are another 33 countries which give e-visa to Indians. So I'm talking about close to about 80, 90 destinations are available to Indians to actually travel quite seamlessly. In the sense, it's the ease is there. So India is a very attractive source market for all of these
Mhm.
destinations. So from a short haul standpoint, UAE, obviously, because of the summer, it's hot. It's going to be hot. But Vietnam, Bali, we're seeing about 25% growth over last year. Uh, then there are these CIS countries like Azerbaijan,
Yes.
Georgia,
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Singapore, Abu Dhabi. So, all of these places are at this point in time a lot in demand at this point. And so, short haul travel is really, really booming, because there is much better connectivity out of North India. There's much better connectivity. We are doing a charter program from Bangalore to Paro in Bhutan. And in fact, our program is fully sold out, and we have now added additional charters from Bangalore. So it's all in April and May, is what it is. So suddenly, new source markets are being tapped by players like us to see, because we were seeing demand coming out of South India, and there was no connectivity which was available. So we
Mhm.
facilitated that, and we are obviously reaping some benefits of that at this point in time. So that's what we are seeing. Coming to long haul in summer, Europe
Mhm.
is by far the most popular in terms of demand. So we are seeing a lot of demand to Europe. Uh, my sense is by the time we end this summer, we would have long haul travel would either match or better the pre-COVID levels. At this point in time, till last year, we
Ah,
said long haul
interesting.
because of the visa delays and stuff like that had not fully recovered. All the other segments had recovered, but long haul had not recovered. But my sense is with whatever we are seeing in terms of forwards, long haul will also recover. So Europe is very popular. Australia and New Zealand is extremely popular. We seeing a lot of demand from mature travelers to Kenya, South Africa, Japan. Japan, the cherry blossom season is extremely popular. We are seeing people traveling
Yes.
South Korea. So, so overall, what I'm saying is giving you a sense of how the summer looks like. Summer is going to be extremely busy. There will be supply side constraints like airfares and the number of seats capacity available. But then that's a good problem to have. Than not having too much of demand. So right now,
Correct. And then there is the news of Indigo ordering wide body aircraft, which clearly shows that the carrier has global aspirations, right?
at this point in time, between the two of the largest Indian carriers, the Air India and the Indigo, both of them are practically taking a delivery of a new aircraft every week or 10 days. So
Mhm.
there is a huge demand. So my sense is at some point in time, they'll also start dominating because everybody is seeing that Indians will continue to travel very, very strong.
Absolutely, and as our aviation minister had said that he wants to make India an aviation hub.
Yes.
you know Vishal, speaking about Indian travelers, it's clear that the Indian travel landscape has of course changed significantly post COVID. There are more and more travelers. When we are doing our stories, when we are researching our stories, we're finding that more and more travelers are coming from the smaller cities, which we call tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. They are venturing out, and like you mentioned, it's thanks to increased connectivity and, of course, affordability as well. The central government scheme of Uri Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, the Udan scheme,
Yeah.
which makes it, which is making building airports in smaller cities. And then there is the rising middle class in India, which is, and then coupled with the enthusiasm of the millennials and the Gen Z that is driving this travel surge. Now, these young travelers are eager to explore new destinations and seek unique experiences, and they want to make travel more accessible and inclusive than ever before. What are your observations about the evolving Indian traveler?
See, the Indian traveler has already come of age in my mind, and we've noticed, and I'm just saying that, and it's a combination of reasons why it's the growing affluence in the country. Obviously, there is a mind shift change. We are becoming a more spending economy, and people are valuing experiences and travel over some of the material acquisitions that they were earlier doing. Earlier, it was a car which was very important. Today, a trip to Europe or maybe a trip outside of it is far more important. I have, and very anecdotally speaking, I've been interacting with some of the other CEOs in other categories like apparels and lifestyle products and things like that. And they've said on record that they are seeing some challenges within their categories because the Indian consumer is preferring travel and experiences over some of the other things like apparels and some of these other lifestyle products. So coming back to
Mhm.
the point, we've noticed in our customer set a 10% drop in the average age of our traveler. And that's on account of two reasons. One, obviously, for the reasons that we discussed earlier, because it's an aspirational class. They are doing well. They have disposable incomes and things like that. It's also a combination of some of the things, some of the access to, let's say, products like buy now, pay later, because there are multiple fintech companies, bank loans, and people realize that they have easy EMI options. So the age of the traveler has come down. Plus, we've also invested heavily because we are a 75-year-old organization as SOTC. Uh, we've been investing disproportionately in our digital assets to acquire customers digitally. So we've noticed a clear shift in the age profile of a traveler. Now, this
Mhm.
generation is influenced by the advent of OTTs. They are mobile first. So we've kind of enabled our content on their mobile devices, so they can access us on their mobile devices. They can call us up in a call centers, or they can visit our stores. And today we are present in close to about 50 odd cities and towns of India through our own offices. And we've left the convenience and the choice to the customer, rather than we determining that we will only address them through online way. We've said that you, whatever is convenient to you, you want to come to us online, you want to call us in the call center, or you want to visit our store, we will allow you to do that. So tier 2 and tier 3 cities with so much content now, with the OTT channels, and there are so many travel channels, and there is so much of information which is available. People are using Instagram and stuff like that, and there is a different way of reaching out through their influencers and followers, and we're using all of these tools to reach out to this new age traveler. So, and there is a lot of knowledge available per se. Plus, what we have also done is, for we've realized that India, while it's a large country, we have a regional nuances. So we make our content available on our website through a regional platform. So we have vernacular websites in multiple languages, like Gujarati, in Bengali, and Tamil. The idea is to make sure that we can communicate in their languages, and that's helping us our tier 2 and tier 3 penetration. We've created some regional sub brands within our umbrella brand, which is SOTC for holidays. We have regional brands like Gurjar Vishwadarshan, which is essentially mean for Gujaratis, you can see the world. So that's a very Gujarat specific, with a Gujarati speaking tour manager, flights departing ex Gujarat, and obviously there is food, which is kind of one of the key requirements from people who travel from Gujarat and things like that. So we have regional specific. So we have regionalized a lot of our programs. Like during Puja, we have very, very specific propositions from east of India, where Durga Puja is
Mhm.
big travel period. So, so a combination of things in terms of the content availability, in terms of regionalizing our content, and to the availability of easy finance options, and the overall information and regional products. I think that's where the tier 2 and tier 3 markets, we are seeing about a 35% odd increase in the demand compared to previous years, as far as the regional markets are concerned. And we believe that they will be a big growth driver. We have a clear focus in expanding the width and the depth of our distribution across the multiple cities and towns of India, both physically as well as digitally, because we will continue to be an omni-channel player for a foreseeable future. So that's broadly where we are at this point in time. Then there is obviously travel, because it's an experiential product. This generation, the younger generation, likes to brag about it, and they are looking at Instagrammable destinations. They are always on Instagram. They have friends, and they're looking at likes and things like that. A lot of these things are creating a positive momentum around more demand at this point in time.
Correct. I think, Vishal, you're very correct in saying that while there is a great opportunity in travel in India, but you also need to know how to tap that opportunity. Like you said, like you mentioned that, localizing experiences for travelers, it's very important for that. And you talked about, the vernacular websites that you have. So that's the way in which you need to tap. While there's a lot of opportunity, but you need to know how to tap. And yes, of course, social media is something that's really big. I mean, like, it's Instagram in India because TikTok is banned, but elsewhere it might be TikTok. Very interesting take on that. Shifting gears, I wanted to ask you about the recent weather event and its impact on travel. The recent thunderstorms in UAE had, at that time, had undoubtedly affected travel plans for some. flights and activities were disrupted. But the resilient travel industry in the UAE is, of course, working hard to ensure that there's minimal disruption and quick recovery. I wanted to ask you something because India is definitely one of the biggest source markets for UAE, and for Dubai specifically, we are the biggest source market for tourism. Are things back to normal? And do you have worried Indian travelers coming to you changing their plans?
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened in UAE. One, it was a short event. It was, and obviously, no country or a city in this world can handle a downpour of this kind, which suddenly happens.
Correct.
And obviously, there was a material disruption in the flight schedules and in terms of the customers. But the whole disruption lasted for about 4 or 5 days in totality. So it's a very short event. It came in. We've obviously had to reschedule a lot of our customers because a lot of customers who were already traveling, they were in their overseas destinations. So we had to reschedule their flights. So we worked with the airline partners, we worked with the hotel chains to make sure that we reschedule their plans. But at this point in time, as we speak, things are absolutely normal. Uh, Emirates and Etihad Airlines, because you must appreciate that they are major hubs for all the westbound travel from India. So there was a material disruption, let me put it that way, for those 4 or 5 days. But things have been, and they very quickly worked and put the schedules back on track. Things are absolutely normal as we speak over the last 3 days odd. And as far as the customer is concerned, I must tell you, our travelers are very, very discerning. They understand that these things happen. They understand there is a disruption and there is some level of inconvenience that will happen. But things are very quickly back to normal. And if you go on the ground in Dubai, I was talking to some colleague who was in Dubai 2 days back. Things are absolutely normal on the road. You don't even know how materially the place was disrupted with waterlogging and all of those things at the airport and things are absolutely normal. I must say that, and the schedules, so are the schedules, and the backlogs have all been cleared.
Yeah, and then of course now with the Arabian Travel Mart happening in Dubai in the next few weeks, the half of India will be there, right? Um, Thank you so much, Vishal, for joining us today and for helping us cover a range of topics from visa changes to travel trends in India.
Thanks, Peden. Thanks for having me over, and it was a pleasure interacting with you.
Yeah, it sure was. Thank you for everyone tuning in. That wraps up today's episode of the Skift India Travel Podcast. Remember to subscribe to the Skift India Podcast on your favorite listening app for more such discussions. And join us next time for more exciting insights and updates from the world of travel. Thank you very much.
This has been the Skift India Travel Podcast. Thank you for listening.